Dear Patriots, before the news starts, please subscribe to our patriotic channel by clicking the subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up to this video. Don't forget to leave your opinion below in the comments section. Share the news on Facebook and Twitter so you friends see it. Thank you.
Breaking the worst RINO of them all might challenge Trump in 2020, it's awful. There has been a great deal of chatter about whether any Republican politician or public figure will have the courage to make a run for the presidency in 2020 with Donald Trump as the incumbent. So far, the only Republican to have started down this path is Senator Jeff Flake of Arizona. This is surprising since, instead of facing his challenger like a man, anti-Trump Senator Flake decided to announce already this year that he was not going to run for Senate re-election in 2018. Senator Flake decided to include many insults about Republican President Donald Trump in his resignation speech, which pleased liberals. Now he is making left-wingers in the Republican Never Trump contingent even happier by hinting that he will be challenging Trump for the GOP nomination in 2020. In classic Shermanesque Washington politician fashion, Flake suggested he will be running by specifically denying that he has any plans on running. Stated Flake on ABC's This Week about speculation that he will be challenging Trump, "I don't rule anything out, but it's not in my plans." He added, "Like I said, I haven't thought that deeply about it. But I do believe if the president is running for re-election, if he continues on the path that he's on, that's going to leave a huge swath of voters looking for something else." Flake then spent more time criticizing Trump for the fact that older white men like him, saying, "When you look at the lack of diversity, sometimes, and it depends on where you are, obviously, but by and large, we're appealing to older white men, and there are just a limited number of them, and anger and resentment are not a governing philosophy." Do you think Flake will end up being too scared to run against Trump in 2020? Angry libs are now using an adult coloring book called "I Am So Sick of White Guys." One of the stupidest trends right now among liberal adults, particularly in coastal cities, is buying adult coloring books and coloring in them with crayons or colored pencils as though they were still children. Many leftists have promoted this activity to help people who were triggered by the fact that male Donald Trump defeated female Hillary Clinton in the 2016 presidential election. It clearly seems as though many still have not gotten over that. A liberal white man named Jim Corbett decided to cater to other snowflakes by making an adult coloring book titled "I Am So Sick of White Guys," featuring parody images of powerful Caucasian men like Donald Trump. Said Corbett why he made the coloring book, "It came completely out of me screaming at my TV, and the way the GOP is taking the country off in a totally different direction. I'm just a concerned citizen." He added about the book, which is for sale on Amazon for $10, "For us, this is a humorous coping mechanism. I am very frustrated and sad. But we want to make sure people understand this is not a vehicle of intolerance or hate. We are not trying to get people to hate white guys. We need people to have good coping mechanisms." He went on, "Look, I'm a white guy, there's a lot of white guys like me, and this idea of white privilege is a real thing. Do you think it's okay to be a white guy?" New York Times writer just said Trump supporters are terrorized toadies. A liberal New York Times writer named Roger Cohen spent his Christmas Day coming up with one of the most ridiculous anti-Trump screeds to have ever even appeared in that notoriously anti-Trump newspaper. Cohen called the White House of President Donald Trump Turkmenistan on the Potomac and then claimed that Trump's backers are terrorized toadies. Wrote Roger, "If this is America, with a cabinet of terrorized toadies genuflecting to the great leader, a vice president offering a compliment every 12 seconds to Mussolini's understudy, and a White House that believes in alternative facts, then it is time to keep your head when all about you are losing theirs." Cohen then got mad at Republicans for liking a Republican president, as if Republicans are not allowed to admire others in their own party. He wrote, "If this is America, less than a year into the Trump presidency, yes, if this is still America, where Representative Diane Black, Republican of Tennessee, thanks the great leader for allowing us to have you as our president, and Senator Orrin Hatch, Republican of Utah, says Trump's will be the greatest presidency maybe ever. He then tried to use George Orwell to accuse Trump of being a Nazi, saying, "If this is America, where the great leader wants you to believe that 2 plus 2 equals 5, and would usher you down his rabbit hole, and struggles to find in himself unequivocal condemnation of neo-Nazis." Roger, who is not originally from the United States, concluded by insulting America under Trump as just a squalid, oversized, greedy place past the zenith of its greatness. Are you disgusted by these non-stop attacks on Trump and people who like him and support him? Black Lives Matter extremist makes it racial, just called Las Vegas shooter a white terrorist. The recent mass shooting in Las Vegas that claimed 58 innocent people's lives was undeniably a true horror story come to life and an unspeakable tragedy. What could also be confidently said about the sad event was that it had nothing to do with race. After all, murderer Steve Paddock was white, and he fired into a crowd of people outside that was mostly white, and the music festival that these concertgoers were attending featured mostly white performers. However, liberals cannot see anything happening these days as not being racially related, and one leader of Black Lives Matter just publicly tried to bring race into a discussion of the massacre in a truly ridiculous way. Petrus Cullors co-founded the group Black Lives Matter, whose associates have been charged with the killings of several police officers. Nonetheless, MSNBC host Joy Reid saw fit to bring this woman onto her show AM Joy. On the program, Cullors did not disappoint, claiming, "Black people are over-policed, over-criminalized, over-incarcerated without being activists." She then brought the totally unrelated Las Vegas mass shooting into the discussion, continuing, "And when you add the activist on top of that, we are being surveilled, we are being criminalized for our activism, and we are being targeted by local law enforcement, and we're being targeted now by the federal government." He then tried to paint lone gunman Paddock as a white terrorist, saying, "And I think that's a shame, especially when we see people like in Las Vegas, the white domestic terrorist who killed over 60 people. This government is focusing on the wrong group of people. Do you think it's absurd she's trying to politicize the Las Vegas massacre tragedy by making it about race?" Libs got shocking answer when they asked Jimmy Carter about removing Confederate statues. As even many Democrats are willing to admit, former peanut farmer and governor of Georgia Jimmy Carter was a total flop as U.S. president during his single term in office in the late 70s. Before Barack Obama entered the White House, President Jimmy Carter was seen as the most left-wing knee-jerk liberal to run our country in recent history. However, a liberal reporter recently got a very big surprise when she asked Carter questions about important topics affecting our country, and got answers very different from the predictable liberal ones she had been expecting. The New York Times left-wing columnist Maureen Dowd asked former President Carter, for example, about what his response is to NFL players kneeling during the national anthem. Carter replied, sensibly, "I think they ought to find a different way to object, to demonstrate. I would rather see all the players stand during the American anthem." Maureen then moved on to another hot-button topic, that of Democrats' desire to whitewash American history and insult Southern heritage by removing statues of Confederate generals and other leaders from public places. Dowd may have overlooked the fact that Carter is from Georgia, and has a deep connection with the region. When she asked Jimmy if the statues should be removed from the parks, he answered, "That's a hard one for me. My great-grandfather was in Gettysburg on the southern side, and his two brothers were with him in the Sumter artillery. One of them was wounded but none of them were killed." He continued, "I never have looked on the carvings on Stone Mountain or the statues as being racist in their intent. But I can understand African Americans' aversion to them, and I sympathize with them. But I don't have any objection to them being labeled with explanatory labels or that sort of thing." Are you surprised that Jimmy Carter did not toe the liberal line on these key issues? Meghan McCain just gave Pelosi the look of death after one stupid thing she said, "It's priceless." ABC's deeply biased liberal political talk show The View has a long history of using soft Republicans to serve as the token conservative on the show, useful only as punching bags by the show's army of leftist hosts, including Joy Behar and Whoopi Goldberg. Some people suspected that with Meghan McCain joining the show in that slot it would be much the same, given who Meghan's father is. However, Meghan has proven to be a sharp opponent for her liberal co-hosts and for the slow-witted Democrats that they bring on the program as guests. This was in evidence recently when legendary Democratic House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi came on The View, clearly with the anticipation that it would be friendly territory for her. However, she was so surprisingly pressed on how the Democratic Party has become deeply divided. Said Nancy in response, ridiculously, "Well, let me, with all due respect, disagree with you. There is not a fracture in our party similar to what's happening in the Republican Party. My party has always been a dynamic party. It is not a rubber stamp party, that's the vitality of it." She then claimed that she can name an overwhelming number of people among the Democrats who want her to stay as the Democrats' House leader, and added, "I feel very confident in what I'm doing and the support that I have, but please don't think that it is anything like the fracture that is in the Republican Party." Meghan McCain then gave Pelosi what can only be described as the look of death, and rebuked her, saying, "That's from winning, though. I mean, President Trump is in the White House, so there's a breakdown someplace. How much do you love Meghan for this?" Shaq and Barkley just teamed up to destroy Anthem kneelers, libs are furious at them. NBA Hall of Famers Shaquille O'Neal and Charles Barkley may have been fierce adversaries on the basketball court, but they are united in the disdain they have for troublemaking protesters that have been trying to rip our country apart. During a segment on the show NBA on TNT, the Who basketball legends took on the issue of millionaire football professional players who, inspired by Black Lives Matter associate Colin Kaepernick, have been kneeling instead of standing up for the national anthem. Said Charles, "I'm sick of hearing about the anthem protests. We're all in this thing together. It ain't a black or white thing. It ain't a cop against people. It's all of us." Former national champion with the Lakers and the Heat Shaquille agreed, replying, "I agree with Chuck, enough talking. When are we going to do something about it? The problem has been, when you allow people to deviate from what you're trying to do, then they can create other problems." O'Neal also made quick work of the idea liberals have been putting out that protesting the anthem by kneeling somehow does not show disrespect to the flag or to members of the U.S. military. Stated Shaq, "They always say, we are not disrespecting the flag. But when you allow people to say you are disrespecting the flag by doing it during the national anthem, is the message really being heard?" He added, "So now, like Chuck has said, enough talking. Let's just get something done, and make this world a better place." Are you glad these famous basketball players spoke out clearly about protesting NFL players?